everybody. Today I'm here to show you how to make recycled paper for Earth Day. So this week we're celebrating Earth Day and I'm going to show you how to make tried and true recycled paper using scrap papers or even junk mail or computer paper, whatever kind of paper you have in your house. So I'm going to go over the materials that you need. It is quite a bit, so I've included the materials in this video. But I do want to list them out for you because you might not have everything in your house. So I've got some alternatives for you. So the first thing you're going to need is a blender. And you're going to make a little bit of a mess with your blender. So make sure you have permission from your parents, and you might need your parents' help because some pieces and parts in the blender can not only be really messy, but they're really sharp. You will also need a couple of large cups. So you can see about how big they are. One's going to be for paper and one is going to be for water. You're going to need some newspaper, and this newspaper can be great for making recycled paper, but this is also for sopping up some of the water and letting your paper dry on. You're going to need a couple of towels, and this is for soaking up the water, and because sometimes if your paper is dyed a color, it can come off on your counters. Make sure these are rags, and it's okay if they get stained. You're going to need a sponge. If your sponge is dirty and old, that's okay. I couldn't find a dirty or old sponge here at our house, so I just grabbed a new one. You might ruin it, so make sure it's okay with your mom and dad or whoever's at your house. That it's okay if it doesn't look like this afterwards. Scrap paper. I have one of the scrap paper bins from the school, but you can use any paper for this activity. If you only use white paper, then your recycled paper will turn out white. Try not to use paper that's cardboard or thick or shiny because it'll get stuck in your blender and it won't mix very well. So you want to stick with like a computer paper thickness or construction paper thickness, nothing thicker. And then at the school, when we make recycled paper, we have this 3-part system, the grid, the wooden frame, and the screen. Now, I understand most of you probably won't have this at home. So all you'll need for today is some sort of tray or bin, and we're going to use sponges and rags and newspaper to make this work. Your recycled paper will hopefully look like one of these. And go grab your materials because we're going to get started. Okay, so we're going to talk about what we're filling our 2 cups with. So we really want to think about the color wheel and what colors mix really well together. So I have a couple of examples here to show you. I'm going to get real close. So on this one, I used green mostly, all different color greens, a little bit of yellow, and some blue. So if you want to see that. On this one, I used mostly orange, some reds and pinks as well. And then on this one, you've got a mix of purples, some pinks, and a little bit of blue. Now you're going to see white in all of these because I do tell the kids that to get a really good color and thickness of a paper, you want to take a couple of computer pieces of paper and tear them up. They can be old worksheets too, and put them inside the cup. So what I'm going to show you here is how to mix a good color. I'll add my white papers in, and then we'll dump into the blender. Okay, so I've got, we did a project at our house with tracing our hands. And so we have a lot of paper trash from that project. So I'm going to kind of rip them up into pieces. They don't have to be super small. I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing this, but you do want to rip them up. Now, if you have paper with tape, this piece, you want to definitely take the tape off. You don't want to put the tape through the blender. And what we're going to do is fill up this cup with our paper. Now it's okay to mix colors. So I've got some purple that's going in here from some Post-it notes. This is more from our tracing our hand activity that we did as a family this morning. All of this is going into my cup as well. Now, think of some colors that might go really well with blue. What are some colors next to the rainbow next to blue, or the color wheel that would mix well with blue? So one that would be really good would be green. And so green would be a great color to throw in here. Different shades of blue. So if you've got lighter or darker colors, that would be really good. What's another color that we could maybe put just a little bit in here? We also want to think about contrasting colors and colors that might make brown, which wouldn't be great. So if you're thinking purple or violet, I can see why you might be thinking that. But if we mix purple and green, we're going to get a not so great color because purple and green don't really mix very well. They can sometimes mix really well, but for this activity, we definitely don't want to be doing that. You can put yellow in here because yellow mixes with blue to make green. And so those colors would actually mix really well together inside the cup. So I've got some yellow, and I'm going to tear this up too. And I'm just going to keep tearing my yellows, blues, and greens until my cup is full. Now don't forget, if you do have computer paper at home, go ahead and use that in your cup too. I'm going to keep tearing, and I'll be right back when my cup is full. And I'm also going to be tearing up 2 pieces of computer paper, white, plain computer paper, or worksheet, and add it to the cup as well. So I'll be right back when that's done. Okay, so I filled up my cup almost to the top with blues, greens, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of purple. I don't want to add a ton of the purple because it doesn't really mix well with the yellow or the green, but I did add a few tiny pieces in there. And I've also tore up a bunch of white. So this is 2 sheets of plain computer paper. I'm also going to add those to my cup. So this will make your cup totally full. Now you do want the cup totally full. And then you're going to take your second cup and you're going to fill it with water. So I'm here in my kitchen and I'm going to fill it about 3/4 full of water. You can see the line right here, and I'm going to dump into the blender, and we're going to see how full it gets. So I've got make sure this is locked in place. Gonna open it, dump in my paper, and then dump in the water. You're looking for a ratio here that you want the water to at least be half as how much paper you have. I need a little bit more water. You can always add more water once the blending gets started. So now my water goes up to here, and I've got paper up to here. I want to put the lid on the blender, and I want to press a button on the blender to start cutting everything up and mixing it up. So I'm going to hit chop. Okay, so it's definitely mixing, but as you can see, I've got a bunch of paper up here that's not mixing, and then I've got a good mixture down here of paper and water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a spoon, and make sure you do this part with a parent. and I'm going to kind of get that bigger pieces of paper down at the bottom so that it gets mixed in as small as the paper pulp you see here. So I'll be right back with a spoon to show you how to do that. Okay, so here I've got some big papers at the top, and then I've got some really nice paper pulp here. This is what you want your paper pulp to look like. These big pieces need to be pushed down to the bottom. So I'm using a spoon from my kitchen, and I'm just pushing them down to the bottom, and I'm going to give this another go. You kind of want this to look like a smoothie. I'm going to add, I think, a little bit more water to get this thing going. Okay. I'm just going to do a quick little stir. I think I want to have it go a couple more times. It is pretty thick. Okay, this is looking so good. I think we're almost there, guys. Okay. So we want the consistency of a smoothie, which I definitely have here. All right, so I've taken the lid off, and I've got my newspaper here, and I'm going to pour this right on the newspaper. Now, if you start to pour and you see a ton of water, I'm going to collect that a little bit of water. But I want all the paper pulp in a big giant pile here on top of the newspaper. And you can see that my paper colors have made this awesome teal color. I'm just getting all the paper pulp out from the blender. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to use my sponge, and I don't want to press down too hard because I don't want my paper to be super thin. So if you press down a lot, your paper is going to be thin. You kind of want your recycled paper to be thick. And I'm going to form a shape. And if your sponge gets too wet, squeeze it out. Okay. Now I'm going to start gently tapping the top of my paper and squeezing it out as I go. So I want to keep the shape of my paper, but we're going to squeeze our sponge into it and then squeeze the extra into the cup. And you want to go over the whole paper like this. So I'm going to press into the paper, don't press down too much, and then squeeze out the extra water. So you can see how much water I'm getting from the paper. This will help your paper to dry faster. And go over your whole paper doing this method. Okay. Now I'm going to take my paper, fold it in half, flip it over, and now I'm going to do the same to this side. I want it to keep its shape. Make sure my sponge is nice and dry, and I want to go over the whole thing soaking up the water and squeezing it out into the cup. And I'll be right back when I'm done doing this to my whole paper. Okay, so I have squeezed out so much water from my paper. I've gone over it several times and now it's ready to come up off of this soaking wet paper I have here. So I've got more paper ready to go. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to hold on to where my paper is and I'm going to hold on to the other side and I'm going to flip this whole thing over. And then I'm going to very carefully peel my paper off of the very wet newspaper. Toss all of this and let it sit like this until it's dry. After about 12 hours, so overnight, you can flip it over again when this side is more dry to let air flow on the other side. And then you have a piece of recycled paper that you can draw or paint on or write on or really do whatever you want. It's beautiful. Try it with a bunch of different colors. I can't wait to see what you guys do. And happy Earth Day!